And welcome into the Detroit Lions News Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Chap. We're going to go through a variety of topics on this Detroit Lions and this interesting game with Indianapolis Colts. That's all I could say. I think this game right here is the epitome of what a trap game could potentially be. When you think about a trap game, it's a game where the other team has the opportunity to show flaws in your the way that you play. Now Detroit doesn't have many flaws. I think one of the only flaws that they really do have is against these running quarterbacks. This is going to be a good test because Anthony Richardson, he will give you some chances to get the ball, but he will also run to get first downs, touchdowns. We saw that last week with the Jets. And he was fantastic last week with against the Jets, which you can't write too much about him doing that against the Jets. Like you really can't say that was an impressive showing. Obviously, the Jets are falling apart, but it was impressive from what Anthony Richardson is used to. But if you look at that team in particular, their offense, one of the things that you stands out to you is Jonathan Taylor. He's a fantastic running back. Josh Downs at wide receiver is a fantastic wide receiver. Alec Pierce is like their go-to guy in the red zone. He's pretty phenomenal. Um, it's going to be interesting with this game because if it was any other coach, all truth right here. If it was any other coach, and you're telling me, will this coach have them ready to play? And with any other coach in Lions history, I think I could say, like if Jim Caldwell was going to the Colts, I think I'd say, I'm a little bit worried about that. But because it's Dan Campbell, because of what Dan Campbell has done with this team and getting them ready to play every game, there was 2 games on the schedule I said could potentially be a trap game. The Cardinals game, but that was coming off a loss, so you really can't say that. But at the beginning of the year, I said the Cardinals would be a trap game. And they were pretty tough. And the second game I thought was going to be a trap game was the Tennessee Titans. Because as bad as the Tennessee Titans are on offense, which they're abysmal, their defense is pretty good. And you didn't really need the defense. You didn't really need the offense to show out. You got a lot of, special teams plays. They still put up a ton of points. But the fact remains, Dan Campbell has his team ready to go. And when you look at what makes a coach great, what makes an organization great, it's that they bring the same battle to every fight. It's not about bringing a battle when you know you're playing a top team. Like when you're playing the Packers, it's understandable that you're going to bring a fight. When you play the 49ers, it's understandable. The Eagles, the Cowboys, the Chiefs, the Steelers, those teams that they expect fights because that's what they've known. But you're playing a team like the Colts, who historically they have a good franchise, but under the last couple of years it's been hit or miss, and they're looking to rebound, obviously with Anthony Richardson, and he's a good quarterback. He's raw. He needs some time to develop, and they kind of played the game of we're going to start Joe Flacco. Oh no, we're not going to start Joe Flacco. So it's an interesting kind of thing with this team because the Colts, for all intents and purposes, they do have some talent everywhere on the field. You look at offensively, like we went over with Josh Downs, with Jonathan Taylor. Obviously, Anthony Richardson has a rocket for an arm. Sometimes he doesn't use his head, but we'll get to that later in the podcast. But you look at defensively, Grover Stewart is a hell of a defensive tackle. Latu is a good defensive end. DeForest Buckner as a defensive tackle. He's not a good run stopper. He's a good pass rusher. That's one thing. But he's going to be going against Zeitler and Ragnow, which kind of nullifies him. Latu will probably be going against a guy like Sewell or Decker. And if he's going against Sewell, it's not going to be a good matchup for him. But Grover Stewart's a damn good run stopper. But this Colts team is, I think at a mismatch on defense. Offensively, they have some pieces that could really put together some drives, but the Detroit Lions have shown the ability to stop the run, not let you get things in the end zone, in the red zone, and they've been a very, very good team in passing wise. And you know, one of the things you could look at in terms of Anthony Richardson is he's going to be going against these two safeties who have been phenomenal. Like if you look at Brian Branch and you look at Kirby Joseph, they've been phenomenal. They're still top two in ball hawk rate, which tells you everything you need to know. Obviously, Kirby Joseph is one of the leaders in interceptions right now. So Branch has been playing out of his mind. Kirby's been playing out of his mind. And when you look at these two players in particular, it's going to be very rough for Anthony Richardson because there's a lot of times that he forces a ball in there and it gets picked off. It's very, very rare that he gets he does make some incredible throws, but he's a young, raw player who needs time to develop. He wasn't ready coming out of Florida. A lot of people thought coming out of Florida that he was going to be ready right off the hop, and I was just like, there's no way he's going to be ready off the hop. If you look at the way Anthony Richardson's career has gone, he got hurt this first year. He's basically in his first rookie year. I mean, he's not a rookie, but he's basically he didn't play a full season of the rookie year. So this is going to be an interesting game. Obviously, Jared Goff in this passing attack could have a day. We're going to talk about that later in the podcast. This is going to be the game preview podcast. It's not going to be a long podcast. It's not going to be, me talking all the time. It's going to be just simply sports. I mean, this game, how it presents itself, and what the Lions need to do to win this game. But it's going to be an interesting game. This game is very, very critical for the Detroit Lions. If you win here, you go win it on Thanksgiving. You're going to be 11-1 going into that game against the Green Bay Packers on Thursday Night Football. And if you win that, 12-1 is a pretty dominant stranglehold. You got to look at the schedules of some of the other teams. I mean, some of the other teams might lose some games here coming up. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the Detroit Lions do moving forward. But this team right now, man, they have shown the ability to not overlook teams. That's one of the things that I like about this team the most. And if the Detroit Lions just come to play against the Colts like they have against every team, they're going to be fine. I thought their two worst games of the year, one they should have won against the Buccaneers, and the second one was the Texans, which they won. Those were the two worst games. And when you don't play your best and you still come out with a chance to win, like the Buccaneers game, like the Texans game, which they did win, that tells me all you need to know about this football team. They're a damn good football team. They're gonna be tough to beat, and it's crazy, but this is a good team, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. But you know, you look at the Colts. The spread right now is 7.5. So Detroit has covered spread pretty a lot, and over under is 50.5. So the average margin of victory for Detroit is 18, which is absolutely just insane to be 18 at this point of the year. That's first in the league, by the way. But there's a lot of ways that Detroit's going to have a chance to beat the Indianapolis Colts. We're going to go through it on the podcast. Let's highlight the offenses. Let's highlight the Colts offense versus the Detroit Lions defense, and then let's look forward to the Lions offense versus the Colts defense, and we'll do that next on the Detroit Lions News podcast.